And welcome to Nerd Stalker. I am Adolfo Ferranda at Nerd Stalker on Twitter. Great to see you all. Today we have a really wonderful guest. I'm so happy to guess. His name is Dave Farrow. He is the two-time Guinness Record holder for greatest memory. He has been a featured guest expert on over 2,000 interviews in the media, including Today Show, Live with Regis and Kelly, Steve Harvey, Discovery Channel, and many others. To earn the world record, Pharaoh recalled the exact order of 59 decks of shuffled playing cards using the Farrow Method. This method was originally invented to combat Pharaoh's dyslexia and ADHD and is now a unique memory system backed by a double-blind neuroscience study at McGill University, which is amazing. Dave, thanks, and welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me. This has been fantastic. Thanks very much for going to our memory tournament over at eBay as well.
Yeah, you bet. We're going to definitely get into that one. But Dave, for all of us, the people out there who have no idea who Dave Farrow is in this memory method, please can you despite the bio, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm really a living, breathing example of the concept that necessity is the mother of invention. As I said in my bio, I have ADHD and dyslexia. It's not ashamed of it. It actually gives me an advantage in a lot of different areas. Now we know a lot from the science that it's more of a spectrum. But the other thing also is that it was a real thing. I really struggled with learning and I wanted to overcome that, but I had a fundamental belief that I could, what we would today say, I could hack my brain. I could do something, think different thoughts, do different things, do different strategies, and I would do better in school at the time, right? That was my focus. So I became obsessed with everything I could think of to figure out about like mentalism, hypnosis, everything from memory techniques, speed reading, everything. And I really separated kind of the fact from the fiction and eventually ended up coming up with my own method that I was very proud to test out with the neuroscience team over at McGill University just last year. And it was a great double-blind neuroscience study that proved the theory that I have about mnemonics as well. Since then, we run these memory competitions every year. Our next one is in Florida, and it's going to be happening in July 29th. The one we just had, actually, April 15th over at eBay was a great success, and we're running these every single year. It's the official American and Pan-American memory competitions now, and I'm proud to be, the organizer and helping to kind of get the next generation of memory people going.
Yeah, and everyone there was so passionate about what you do, and we spoke with Sergio Gonzalez. And it's Sergio Gonzalez, right? The last name Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, yeah. He was so passionate about Dave Farrow this, Dave Farrow that, and we had to investigate who's this Dave Farrow guy. And he's like, please come to this eBay thing, this memory tournament. We're like, okay, this sounds like it's gonna be. We'll see. And we go, and we were really blown away. We had such a wonderful time. And
I know it sounds boring, right? It sounds terrible. Yeah.
But it's so
we're going to be
fun.
memorizing, and not only that, we're going to be doing it competitively. Like, what on earth am I doing here?
Right.
No, well, for those of you who don't know, there are techniques to what I like to say is to trick your brain into memorizing things without repetition. That's the best way to describe it. So it allows someone like me for my Guinness record to memorize 59 decks of cards nearly flawlessly with only one mistake out of 3,068 cards. It allows other people to memorize like the entire Bible word for word. I know a person very close actually who memorized 80,000 words of pies in Japan, and he got the Guinness record for that. And there's different records for speed and things like that. But the point is, human beings really, we want to push the envelope. We want to push ourselves to new levels. And yet the majority of people, unless you've really been introduced this at some point, like in an interview like this, the majority of people never actually realize that there is a kind of quasi-secret set of techniques that anybody can learn with an incredibly small amount of practice comparatively. Like, it's not even as much practice as you'd put into, learning how to hit a baseball. It's, a few weeks, that sort of thing. It's not something you'll learn overnight, but, give it a few weeks with a little bit of practice, and you can do things like memorize decks of cards, memorize binary code. I've memorized thousands of digits of binary code, numbers, names, all sorts of things. And of course, the practical applications are immense. People are going to be doing better in school. As lifelong learners, they're going to be doing better in work. I'm hired all the time by corporations and individuals to kind of get that extra edge in life and business. In today's day and age, we're so much more competitive. We have to know so much more information. We have to be lifelong learners or we'll be replaced really quickly. So that's a really big concern. And also, for people like, one of the main things I do is I speak in the college market, for example, and I speak to a lot of college students who did really well in high school, but when they're in college, obviously we know the demands are much higher and they start falling behind and they get very emotional about it,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't realize that your brain is a machine. And if you run it properly, I could take anybody who's failing miserably, like ready to drop out. I could get them to near the top of the class. And I know that because I know how the brain works. I don't have to know even that material. I've done it hundreds, thousands of times with students.
Right. I have to admit too, speaking for myself, we have a very similar path in that sense that when I was young, also everything was blurry, right? Until I put on I got glasses for the first time. I didn't realize people could actually see. In 2020, all my life, I thought this is what it was, this blurry vision was just my reality. My ADHD, same sort of situation. And then I finally realized I thought I was just a bad student, or maybe I was a slow learner and all this stuff. And I started my journey as well as investigating this type of stuff too. Finally got to read eventually way late in life, Moonwalking with Einstein or something like that, where I learned a basic sort of memory palace sort of concept.
Yeah, no, that's really good. But we could take you a lot farther. By the way, we got products and everything. We'll coach you. We'll get you up to like winning a competition or something.
So for those out there, we went to the eBay tournament. I thought it was just going to be some nerds, but what I was really blown away, and because that's my world, right? I work with developers, engineers. A lot of our demographic we watch are those techie types and entrepreneurs and things like that. But it was everyone. It was mothers. It was children. And this. What's incredible about what you provide and the products Dave provides is that it really applies to everyone.
Well, we don't want to turn this into too much of an infomercial, but maybe we could do a little education.
Right.
One of the principles, I want to talk about one of the principles of memory, just because you don't know it until you experience it, but it's actually a principle that I call the tiger in the jungle. And it's a survival mechanism. So when you start to understand that your memory and all of your mental functions are all there to help you survive. At one time, life was not so, so plush where we could talk nationwide, and oh my God, it took a few minutes to actually get us to connect. But I mean, not too long ago would have been an impossible thing to do, period. Right. So because of all this progress, we don't realize that a lot of our abilities, every single one of them has a survival function. So here's how it works. If you try to memorize something right now, your brain really thinks to itself, is this thing I'm trying to memorize, is that really going to help me survive? 9 times out of 10, most of the time, no. That's why you have to repeat the thing hundreds of times, because your brain doesn't think it's important. And importance to your brain is survival. Everything else is kind of pointless. Now, it may sound weird, but some things that you take a huge interest in, some things that you're passionate about, it could be some sort of geek culture or something like that, you could have great memory in. On some level, as hard as it is to believe, your brain actually feels like that's a form of survival, because that's something that you're very, very passionate about. It's something that you have a network of friends, you talk about it, things like that. So what the tiger in the jungle is all about is, say, imagine you were walking through a jungle and you see a tree and a rock and a stream and a nice little bush and another tree and a tiger and then a rock and then another tree and so forth. What are you going to pay attention to first? Well, it doesn't matter how many different things there are, you're going to pay attention to the tiger first. In fact, you're not even going to notice anything else, right? Some people even stop me at tiger. And that's the way your brain works, is it takes the one thing that's memorable out of an entire scene and it holds on to it. It holds on to it like it's so precious. And I think anybody who's ever had a problem with your memory, you know what I'm talking about. When you seem to remember some things in an uncanny way, something is just triggers you so well. And you're like, why am I remembering that stupid joke? But I can't remember this thing for this exam. And it has to do with that tiger in the jungle. On some level, your brain does not think it is dangerous or standing out from the crowd. It's boring. It's blending in.
I'm blown away by, you brought up the key word here, neuroscience right now, and how this is sort of applying to everything. We speak to all these different authors when it comes to culture, leadership, being on camera, giving presentations. So much of it is sort of rooted in this notion of neuroscience and these current brain discoveries and leveraging. And it's really interesting to meet people like yourself and all these other authors who've understood this for so long and have leveraged it.
Yeah,
right, to benefit.
And it also shows how new a lot of this is because, I was doing this. I don't want to give away my age, but I was my first Guinness record I broke in 1996. 96. So it was a long time ago. But back then, we did not even have the theory of brain plasticity. I was doing interviews. I was doing, as you know, hundreds of interviews, and I was contradicting the current scientific establishment at the time. I was talking about brain plasticity, and the scientific establishment was saying how irresponsible I was because the theory at the time was the hardwired brain. I don't know if you remember this, but some people may remember maybe some terms like hardwired for violence or hardwired for addiction or smoking and things like that. Now the strongest wording people ever use is a predisposition to such and such, predisposition to gambling or predisposition to addiction or something. They would never use the term hardwired because we know that the brain is so flexible. With a little bit of exercise, the brain can go and physically it'll grow in certain areas and shrink in other areas. And also in terms of the software and your thoughts, it'll change completely. If you tell yourself positive things on a regular basis, you're going to think positive thoughts very quickly. If you tell yourself negative things on a regular basis, you're going to start thinking negative thoughts. And if you grew up in a household that you heard nothing but negative things and put downs constantly, if you take that person and they for a certain period of time, for several months, if they say positive things to them, or they're in an environment where people say positive things to them, their self-esteem starts to rise. It makes actual physical changes in the brain, that the internal dialogue starts to change. But you need a lot of stimulus to do this. That's why people only discovered it more recently. You need a lot of repetition, or you need, that tiger in the jungle. You need that very memorable experience in order to change the brain. But once you do, it can change at any time, at any age. That's what's so exciting about it.
Yeah, and I don't want this to become an infomercial. So when I did go to the eBay tournament, I was going there to support Sergio, who we had on the show, right? Really. Yeah. And initially, I had a lot of fun. I didn't think I'd participate. I thought I was going to be a spectator. I ended up participating, got 4th place in the word tournament, which was really amazing. That was
really cool.
And
as somebody who just started out, you picked up on the techniques right away.
It was really beneficial. I bought to support Sergio and yourself, because I had such a wonderful time at this tournament, and I suggest everyone go. As someone who's neutral to this whole thing, I went and I got one of the products, an audio and video one. And I commute to San Francisco quite a bit, which is like a 30-minute, maybe to an hour commute. I listen to the audio CDs, until I get the MP3 stuff, and it's really beneficial in a lot of the things. One of the things we talk about is a lot of this rote memorization is sort of what we were embedded to learn in elementary school and high school and the whole thing. And a lot of it, one of the sort of techniques I didn't realize that you taught was and if you could sort of elaborate more as I'm butchering this, the first sort of idea that comes into your mind.
Yes, the first thought technique. Yeah. So right. I'll give you a quick example. I actually have an example back here, an old logo of my business, Pharaoh PR. For the word Pharaoh, we used an Egyptian pharaoh. Now, clearly, I'm not Egyptian. I'm not appropriating any culture or anything like that. But it was just a play on words to get people to remember the name. So we had like a little logo of an Egyptian pharaoh. So that's taking something boring, which is this word here, Pharaoh, and making it interesting, exciting, something dynamic to your brain, which is that you can do that at any time. I love Nerd Stalker, by the way. The 8-bit man there is a great logo for that. So let's say, for example, here's when people first learn some of these techniques, they start to overdo it. They overthink. So say, for example, you meet someone, named Mike, you might think, oh, I could use Michael Jackson, or I could use this, or I could use that, or I could use, and you wrap yourself up in trying to, so the best thing for you to do is the first thing that pops into your mind, even if you don't like it, the first thing that pops in your mind, use it. And it trains you to start thinking of your first thought. And this actually affects all sorts of cognitive function, even beyond memory. I work with writers and programmers actually to get them to make their material good in the first draft, rather than needing several drafts and several edits and stuff, but to get the first thought right. And it's actually a matter of trusting yourself. So the metaphor I use for this, I love metaphors, but if I can use a quick metaphor, you might like this. I use a metaphor of a traffic light. And when you have ideas, think of the traffic light as something you control, and the ideas that come into your mind are like the vehicles that are driving by the traffic light. Okay? So what we end up doing is we look at that first idea and we critique it. We say, oh, no, stop. Oh, that's horrible. It's got a scuzzy bumper, and it's smudged out window, and it's a terrible car and everything. The best idea is actually to accept that first thought, get it out of your system. If you're writing, write it down. If you're planning, strategizing, write down all these ideas, get that car to get moving. And the next car is even better. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. That's what master writers do. People like Stephen King is very famous to do this, but many other writers have done this, where they think of their first thought, they get it all out, then they go back to edit as well. So the idea of getting used to trusting your first thought and not second guessing yourself constantly helps your memory, it helps your creativity, helps so many different cognitive functions. And it's a practice. It's something that we can do every single day. Now, that doesn't mean that you just do a brain dump and you hit send on your email. Like, look over it and review it. But if you get into this mindset, that first brain dump will take you a minute, where before you were laboring over it for a half an hour. That's the power of kind of that Zen thinking.
Now, since we're getting in technique a little bit here, I have, let's say, a cousin Michael. I'm meeting a guy Michael at a party. Why is it the problem you shouldn't think of cousin Michael when you meet Michael at a corporate event or whatever?
Oh yeah, so this is a common thing when you hear people's names. People want to do a technique for names, so they think, you meet someone named Mike, or my name's Dave, and you think to yourself, well, I have a cousin named Dave, so I'm going to remember your name. But in that whole mental exchange, you did nothing to connect me to your cousin. You know what I mean? So ironically, or strangely enough, what would actually work would be, let's say, you meet me, my name is Dave, and you think you have a cousin named Dave. If you imagine your cousin named Dave like chasing me and beating me up, or something that connected the two of them, at least that would make a connection, because your brain does not work by logic. It works through connections. And although those two things seem very similar, they're very different. So when you see somebody, the reason why you instantly like them or dislike them is because they look like other people that you may have seen. This is why human beings are naturally prone to prejudice, unfortunately, So when we look at a person and they look like someone we know, maybe we like them a bit more, or we dislike them a bit more because of actions that other person did. Unfortunately, that's a very real thing. But the other thing also is we'll call somebody a Harry when they're a Bob, right? Because they look like a friend of ours named Harry. So your brain is trying to find a connection. What we do with as memory experts is we make a connection. We just look at this guy named Mike and we imagine a giant microphone bopping up the head, like that giant microphone smacking upside the head. Next time I see that person, that picture in my mind's eye is so silly, I'm never going to forget that. That's just like the tiger in the jungle. It's so crazy and stands out so much, I'm never going to forget it. So that's all we do. And then we just get into the habit of doing that every time. And it becomes second nature, becomes habit. You don't think about it anymore. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself remembering all sorts of things because you're playing these little games in your head. I hope I didn't jump around there too much, but I know your audience is very smart, so I didn't want to dumb it down too much.
No, we're used to that. They can keep up for sure. So let's talk about the memory tournaments themselves. So can you talk about the different sort of events you have within a memory tournament?
Yeah, so we started off. So what a memory tournament is basically is a way to test your memory, and the way we do things differently than any other memory competition, like Moonwalking with Einstein. There's some other there's that highlight different memory competitions. We are the official U.S. memory competition according to the international governing body, the WMC. They've been doing this for 26 years. But we're doing things a little bit different here in America because we want to make things a bit more exciting. When people think of a memory test, they think of like a piece of paper, and you're going through and you're memorizing and you're recalling. And there are some places that do that, and it is like you want to gouge your eyeballs out. But people who practice memory techniques, we want to prove our ability. We put so much time, practicing, flipping through decks of cards, memorizing them. I want to prove what I can do. So what we did with the tournaments, we made it a bit more exciting. We actually pit people head to head, and both of you memorize the same thing. So if you and I are going to a competition, you and I are going to memorize the same sheet of paper, the same list of numbers, whatever. And then during the recall round, we go back and forth. You say the first number, I say the second, you say the third, I say the fourth, until one of us makes a mistake. The minute one of us makes a mistake, then whoever made the mistake loses. The other person has to get one more right in order to win, to prove that they were just one more better than you. It's called the 1-to-win rule. And it actually makes it kind of exciting because, as you saw when we were up on stage, we had some of these people, they were going up and they were like saying the numbers back and forth, and you were wondering, oh, who's going to make a mistake first? And it's kind of, it gets suspenseful.
Yeah, it's so much fun too. And there was a couple gentlemen who went extremely far, even beyond the point, where it was going back and forth, and they just kept going and going and going. It made the event a lot of fun. I definitely recommend everyone go to these, to Dave's memory tournaments. Dave, can you talk about like the services, that products actually themselves, of what you guys sell, what you can provide to individuals?
Sure. Well, first of all, if you want to go to the memory tournament, we have one coming up in Florida. We have Florida and San Jose every year at memorytournament.com. It's pretty easy. We also have memorytournaments.com, so the plural if you like. And type that in so it doesn't get confused with anything else. When it comes to SEO, the word memory, because of computer memory, is very competitive. So type in memorytournament.com. But in addition to that, if anybody wants to start their own memory club, they can do it at their own school. It doesn't cost you anything. We have a little virtual kit where you can start your own memory club. If you want to get some of the paraphernalia, the manuals and the books and things like that, they're very affordable for the clubs. Like a manual is like $10, that sort of thing. If you personally, like you did, where you want to really go to the next level, become a memory master and learn all of the strategies and techniques, I can tell you the best website for that is worldsgreatestmemory.com. It was the category for my Guinness record. I won't say that I have the world's greatest memory, but I'm in the upper echelon, but it's the category in the Guinness Book of Records for memory of world's greatest memory. So worldsgreatestmemory.com, we have a couple of different packages, one more for the educator and teacher or parents, and the other one more for the student or somebody who really wants to achieve something like learning a skill, learning a language, learning something like that. It's as you said, you just listen to it or follow along. I will actually say we have entered the digital age. We do. With every purchase of our program, you do get a login to an online interactive version of the course. So you can actually give those CDs and DVDs to your older friends and loved ones, and you can go through the online version. I think we logged you in and you were taking a look at it, but you were so eager right when you came home from the event, you started to look through the CDs.
Yeah, we're sharing the website right now. I know. So you'll see there's a login, there's Dave doing his thing. You can see all kinds of stuff. Dave, you do everything, man. You do speaking, you have all kinds of products. And you know what? All these various companies, it's insane.
Yeah, so the Smart Success package in there, we also have a program if people want to be memory speakers, they can do courses on this as well. I try to keep busy. I'm very obsessed about my work and I'm a serial entrepreneur. But we haven't even talked about some of the fun stuff that I do as well, which is build robots.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So let's talk about so much. I want to know about your entrepreneurial endeavors. I want to talk about this robotic stuff you're doing.
Here's how it all ties in. When you have good memory skills and just mental powers in general. I talked about, creativity and things like that. When I can go and write out something good quality in a couple of minutes, and other people struggle with it with a half an hour to an hour, that makes me so much more productive. So I have become obsessed to see what the heck I can actually do with this. I've worked for 4 years as a nanotech scientist and design engineer. I'm self-taught, but I was hired by pharmaceutical companies to redesign things. I should say medical device manufacturers, not pharmaceutical companies. And my latest project, actually, the technical project, this is for my passion. This is what I do for fun. When I'm, when I'm bored.
I see a hand.
Right? Yes. So this is the hand of the robot that I built. It's this is just the early prototype. It's
cool.
There you go, pinky finger.
There you go, hang loose.
There you go. I'm making very carefully that I don't pull the wrong finger.
No, that's fine. We're not a PR show. We're a rated R for sure sometimes.
Right on.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this looks a little hokey, but it's actually it's actually designed to be this is one of the early prototypes. So I'm hacking things around myself here, but this is actually an animatronic mannequin. So my goal is to create low-cost animatronic mannequins for department store windows, guerrilla marketing campaigns, things like that. And I believe that if we bring the cost down enough, every single place where you see a mannequin right now, you can actually see a full cost one. So a fully animated one. So the cool thing about this is all the fingers actually move and are animated, and it can do sign language when it's hooked up, so it can do all the keys. And the other thing is I did put some cool design into this where the palm is curved slightly, just like a human palm. It actually is, if you notice, it goes it's like it grabs a sphere. So many robots I found were flat, and the fingers were just going forward like that. And so I curved this. So now when the fingers are out, they're spread out. When they come, when they're crunched together, they actually come together into a fist.
Much more realistic. Yeah.
Yeah. So
very cool. Small detail I never thought of. Wow.
Yeah, and also their fingernails are nice. I like the fingernails.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm like, what's with the fingernails there, Dave?
So this was a different color.
Oh, cool.
Purple one. But nice. You're going to see full size ones shortly. It's actually going to be launched this year, the full product, and it's going to be a really big business. I think it's $1 billion industry waiting to happen. The idea of live animatronics, because the shopping experience has to become more entertaining. So this is the sort of thing that you can do when you have memory power and brain power, is you can pursue things you never thought you could pursue. I bet you right now there's somebody watching or listening to the podcast version of this afterwards, and they've always wanted to get involved in some sort of project, or they wanted to learn a language, or they wanted to design a robot or something like that, and they just couldn't keep up with their own life anyways, much less find another way to kind of maximize that and go to another level and find extra time to learn new things. That's the number one thing that I think holds people back, is that learning feels tough. So they don't do it, and they don't do the learning that they want to do. For me, learning is a pleasure because I'm so well practiced in these techniques, and productivity is a pleasure. Working it can be a joy if you know how your brain functions. It doesn't have to be this grind where you push yourself through and you get so exhausted and you don't really feel normal until after a vacation.
You seem to enjoy the grind, though. You have so many, irons in the fire. How do you sort of organize all this stuff? It seems so transparent, the way that, are you using some sort of productivity techniques, or what do you, for the entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah, there is.
What kind of advice do you want to give?
Yeah, there is a focus technique that I use. I'll give an example. I do, this is my billfold here. I do checklists. So I won't let you zoom in because some of it's personal, but this is my checklist for every week.
Wow.
And each one of these columns, different color code and everything, is for a different day of the week. And it keeps me on track. It keeps me going, for the first, second, third, and fourth, and it just resets every week. I think that is absolutely essential. Getting into a regular routine can change your life. Making exercise, and in my case, I like stretching. I like to do yoga and some strenuous exercise every morning.
Yeah.
Starting your day off like that and waking up early has changed my life. I've become so much more productive that way. And also, there's something that people talk about when it comes to motivation in positive psychology is the difference between a push motivation and a pull motivation. So a push motivation is, I just got to get through college. I got to push myself through this task. Or, I run, as you know, I run a PR firm. So, I got this client, and this project is due, and I just got to push myself through. And every once in a while, you do have to push yourself. That's true. I'm never going to try to say that you can live a life without painful things or difficult things that you don't want to do. As Elon Musk says, you have to do your chores if you want to play with your toys. You just have to sometimes. But you want to try to set up your life where the majority of things you're doing are pull motivations. That is, this is so exciting. I can't wait to work on the next design and to pull up the next design on my screen. So I'm pulled to it. I'm drawn to it. The motivation comes from within, and I want to, rather than the motivation coming.
Dave was holding up the animatronic arm.
Yeah. So without the for the podcast, it's a beautiful animatronic arm. And if you guys want to look this up, this is it's called the Pharaoh bot, and it actually, the product name is going to be the Dancer, because all it will do is just dance in a window. So it's going to be the Pharaoh Dancer, and
nice.
So looks good, and you can check out a demo of it and all that. But the reason why I'm doing that is because that juices me, that gets me excited, and that pulls me.
That's the pull, right?
Yeah. And I have enough other things in my life that pull me. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, it's tough. But if I have to push myself through it, I probably could not do even half of what I do. But
you also have you've surrounded yourself with a support team, it seems like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the people that I've interfaced with have all been wonderful.
Great, right? Yeah, like Arden and Lissa and Zachary. They're my core team here. And of course, Sergio over at eBay. Yeah, that's also another thing that I've learned. I've always been a person who works with people, and not that I've figured out everything, but there is nothing like good partnerships. If there's a way for me to do something on my own, and then there's a way for me to do it with a partner, I will always choose doing it with the partner. Even if I feel like they're not doing as much work as me, and that's the big reason why people don't want to have a partnership. If they're just doing 10% of the work, well, you know what? That's 10% that I didn't have to do all of a sudden. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they might have a great idea. And so I'm just a social creature. Yeah, working with partners is absolutely key. As you build a business, when you start hiring people, it's really important to hire people who are ambitious, who want to push you and drive you. It's kind of that whole push or pull motivation. Never hire somebody who's doing it just for the paycheck. If you're just doing what you're doing for the paycheck, you are not your best self. You're not as creative as you could be, or smart as you could be. Some days I wonder why my people are working so hard, but I know that it's for something more than the paycheck. There's something that is deeper, because we want to be useful. We want to have meaning. We want to be doing something important in life. And I think that's a big part of why I've been so lucky and surrounded by so many great people,
Nice. Hey, Dave, what are you reading?
I will say one more thing.
Okay, please.
This is something I say during every job interview, when I'm interviewing a new candidate. I haven't applied for a job in like 26 years, but whenever I'm interviewing somebody, and whenever I hire somebody, I basically tell them that they can't always agree with me. I want to have people who disagree with me, and it takes courage to be able to say that to people, because sometimes people don't know where to draw the line. You don't know where to draw the line between just being constructive and being a jerk, right? But I always say this to people. I always say, when I'm hiring somebody, all my employees, I said, if you and I agree on everything, one of us is not necessary, and I'm not going anywhere. Great point. If you want to be useful, you have to disagree, you have to engage, which means you have to come up with something on your own, separate from me. You have to think for yourself. And when you challenge people, I think when you challenge people to think beyond that, then they start coming up with great stuff. And I've had some of the people in my PR firm, for example, come up with some great products that opened up whole new avenues of business for us. Now we're marketing. We're marketing to podcasters. We're marketing to a whole bunch of different areas. Yeah. And it wasn't all my idea, and that's awesome. You know, yeah. It doesn't have to be my idea. I would much rather have the money than the ego boost. I would much rather have that any day of the week, you know?
Yeah. That's really interesting, because it's like you say it's challenging, but it's also, as a leader, you're almost accepting criticism. You're accepting that someone else is potentially smarter sometimes, or, you know what I mean?
And, you know, so in a way, you
got to check in at the door.
Well, and you're also saying it's necessary. You know, I'm saying it's necessary. It's not just permitted or allowed or tolerated. It's necessary. It's if you don't have something to contribute, then why are you here? You know, so maybe I'm overdoing it. Maybe that's a bit more than some other people are comfortable with. But I think that's really been a great benefit for me, because people, when you're working on something, even if you're an employee, you feel so much more satisfaction if you're working on something that you feel you have a part of. And if your ideas don't matter, if your thoughts don't matter, if you can't disagree, if you can only agree with me, then your thoughts don't matter, right? So then you'll never have that satisfaction that project was something that you were a part of. You'll have the satisfaction that it's something you worked on, right? But you can always tell when someone really feels like they're part of a project, or if it's just they worked on that, you know? And it's a subtle feeling, but it's a feeling of like a little bit of ownership. It's a little bit of that was my idea, you know? I like that.
As I ironically agree with everything Dave says, yes.
Well, now the interview has to be over, yeah.
Yeah. So Dave, another thing we were curious about is what are you reading? What has been, or listening to, or watching, and what have been like the most sort of your favorite books, videos, things that have influenced you in
I mean some of the classics. Actually, I've got a great book here.
That's great. Like, I'm more of like an audiobook reader, right? With the ADHD thing, it's really tough for me to sit through a book.
I do have audio going on in the car all the time. Yeah. But this one, I don't know if it's an audio. This one's a classic one, because we were looking, I'm a big believer that if you want to accomplish something, you find out people who have done it. So one of the things we're doing in our PR firm is we're going after more corporate entities. So this was Made in America. Peter Uberoth, he transformed the Olympics. It was like in the 80s. Most people don't care now, but that was a great book if you want to know how corporate culture actually works, not how people think it works. And that's something like from the 80s, but you can still learn something from it. You know, it doesn't have to be the latest trending thing that contradicted the latest trending thing. The Checklist Manifesto is a great book if you want something a bit more current. I loved that. Good to Great and Built to Last. Those two are fantastic. I would have to say, though, that there have been sub-books that I have read more than 20 times. Wow. And that is Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. The Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, those two ones, because it's all about mindset. And the Book of Five Rings by Maimoune Musashi. And I would also say The Art of War. Those were the big ones that influenced me. And I read The Art of War because I wanted to be cool when I was like 14, but I really got into it. And but then as you get older, you realize more and more things. I would also say the Tao, the Tao. That's something that you can read. I would suggest you read the Tao Te Ching. By and Lao Tzu. And The Art of War is by Sun Tzu. So a lot of people, it's not the same person, totally, obviously opposites. But the Tao, it's one of those things that you don't really get it until you get it later. You know, sometimes you go through it and you don't really get it. Like there's one phrase that I always say now in my business is the reed that bends in the wind does not break. It's a phrase from the Tao. And it comes up all the time when you're dealing with a client and they're, being really difficult or something. You know what? If we just bend a little bit, then we'll still be around. We're not going to break, and sometimes, knowing when to be patient, is really good.
Beautiful book. Yeah. And great recommendations. Any other sort of future plans or anything that you want to share that you can share?
Actually, I've reached this level where I really just want to grow the PR business. We do a lot of marketing for startups, for small businesses, for new app creators and things like that, as well as authors and experts. I'm coaching a lot of people in speaking. The memory business is reviving, and I'm growing that again. And I'm just going to finish building my robots, and I think I'll build that up to be, worth a few $100 million, and hopefully sell it. And I think I'll live on an island or own a bar after that. That'll be my life, man. So yeah, I'm happy. And it's really good. I would really suggest anybody who's listening, if there's one thing I could suggest, if you respect any of my accomplishments and you want any bit of advice, and if you don't, then that's fine. Don't listen to me. I don't matter. But if you're interested, the biggest thing I can say is run a business at some point. Try to go from yourself to actually having employees to actually, it is by a huge margin the most difficult, challenging feat known to man, in my opinion. After going through this business, I'm a pretty exceptional human being, and I've been like, I've almost lost this a couple of times in the middle of crises while we were like, building this business up, and I'm thinking like, I'm like literally in the Guinness Book of Records for being like exceptional, and I can't seem to make this work. Oh my God, I can't imagine. But what it does is it makes you better with such a great challenge. It makes you better, makes you better communicator, makes you better with money, it makes you better with people, makes you understand sales, everything. So, if even if you don't pursue it, if you just try to, be self-employed for a little bit, work on commission, you'll really get an idea of what type of effort it takes to move the needle, to get something going, to get something working. And then, those skills will also benefit you, even if you want to be employed by someone else. You'll be able to sell yourself better. You'll have a better understanding of how marketing works. And, I see people selling themselves constantly in every single job. It's all about persuasion and understanding how to talk to people. All of these skills, the entrepreneur, it's like you're thrown into this very difficult phase, and it can change you.
Wonderful. Dave, so where can we get more information about you, what you're doing, all these companies that you run?
Well, the simplest thing is just to Google my name, Dave Pharaoh. You know my first name and my last name now, and you have the mnemonic to remember it. So, because I'm no fool. But also, you contact me there. You can get a hold of my office at Pharaoh Communications, or just go online. Just Google Dave Pharaoh, and you'll see our memory products, our memory speaker packages, all of these things, and hopefully you'll be seeing some robots pretty soon.
Very soon. Very cool. All right, everyone.
There we go.
There it is. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for watching Nerd Stalker. And you do the old thumbs up and the like. If you're watching on YouTube, up here we'll be flashing some stuff and the 5 stars and all that stuff. We're at all the places at Nerd Stalker on Twitter, Nerd Stalker TV, YouTube. You know who I am, Adolfo Ferranda. Thank you so much for watching again. And Dave, thank you so much for being on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.